Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Cooper's Ghost. Today we are going to be inspecting, gauging, and assembling an AR15 upper receiver. This is the first real client's gun that I've worked on since attending school of the American Rifle. My manufacturing FFL is CRH Customs LLC, Oak Brook, Illinois. So let's go over this. We've got a 16-inch 5.56 1/7 twist barrel from Aero Precision. I don't know what kind of finish is on it. Maybe black nitride. We are going to inspect and gauge the barrel to the best of our ability. We'll dimple underneath the gas port for a low profile gas block. We will polish feed ramps. We'll bed the barrel in the receiver, torque it on, and torque the muzzle brake on. Let's get started with headspace. We have 5.56 Go extension gauges. These allow you to check headspace of the barrel without any variables to your bolt face or bolt lugs. In we go. Spins freely. Love to see it. Let's take a look at no-go extension gauge. Now this does not tell you whether the gun is unsafe or not. This is just a no-go gauge. What we don't want to see is the bolt closing on a field gauge. We're not using a real bolt here anyway. We're just kind of getting an idea of where our chamber is at. Whether we have a short chamber, correctly chambered chamber, or maybe a little longer. So, in goes extension no-go. Let's give it a twist. It spins in there. You can see it. I can tell you I can feel a little bit of resistance as I spin it, but it does spin in there. So it is we have a slightly long throat in there for a 5.56 chamber. Now we do have, let's find out how long that throat is. We do have the bolt that we're going to use. We have, these are from PTG, by the way. The extension gauges come from PTG. The rest of what I'm about to show you are Forester gauges. Let's look at 5.56 Go. 4.646. It closes and spins. That's 1.4646. Let's go up to 4.656. Actually, let's check no-go. 4.686. Does not close, so we know that it's shorter than 4.686. And just for giggles, we'll show you the max 4.736 field gauge. Definitely shouldn't close on that. If it didn't close on the last one, it certainly does not close. Okay, so let's over here we have the 11-piece set of Forester 223 gauges. This is the full range. Even though this is marked 223 Remington, we can use this to identify 5.56 throat. That's all this really is. This just shows us how long the length of the throat is. So let's go 4656. That's 666. Four, 6, 5, 6. Let's go. Guess what? It closes and spins. Let's go up one more. Let's go 466. 666. 4666. It spins. Spins on the 4666. How about a 4676? Four, 6, 7, 6. You're just gonna have to take my word that this barrel is clean and dry. Does not spin. So it does not spin on the 4676. So we have a 1.4666 chamber headspace. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. Most manufacturers of gas operated guns will give you a little extra headspace for reliability. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what Chad told me when I asked him for a little refresher on AR15 headspace. If a new or used barrel won't take a go, it may be unsafe, but is likely going to be unreliable. If it doesn't take the go, that would mean that we have a short headspace. If it doesn't take the go. If a new barrel takes a no-go, it was made a little long, but it isn't unsafe, and that's what we've got here. If a new or used barrel takes a field gauge, it is unsafe. That means your gauge is going to be, your case will literally have space to move around inside of your chamber. Definitely no good. Let's check if our barrel extension is clocked correctly. I'm going to mock it up in our upper receiver. I'll put the barrel nut on, hand tight. Now what I'm going to do to check this is use Midwest upper receiver rod. Oh my, who do we have here? This little gravy. Hello baby. Hello baby. We got ourselves a feral cat. A gunsmith cat, if you will. He stays in here because it's like 10 degrees outside. He needs some loving. Okay, so who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Alright, so we've got our upper receiver rod. We have never used this to actually torque on a barrel, so it has no damage to it. As it is like this, we can use this as a gauge to tell whether our barrel extension is out of alignment or not. Let's get a little oil on this thing. Slide her in. Let's get you some light in there. That's difficult for you guys to see without me moving the camera around. It goes in smooth. It's not hitting the extension at all. Totally smooth. So we have a well-clocked barrel extension. Let's go in there with a little wooden dowel. Get that flashlight again. Now we'll see, again, it might be a little hard for you guys to see this. That's better. We're going to use this dowel and see if we catch on those feed ramps. And I can tell you, we have no burrs in there, no burrs or overhang. Okay, let's check bore straightness gauge. Brand new barrel. I'm sure it'll pass. Should fall straight through. Passes. No surprise, brand new barrel. But you never know. How about throat erosion gauge? I don't think you guys are going to be able to see that. Takes the first line, stops right about there. I mean, so we are barely taking the first line there. No surprise, brand new barrel. Okay, what we don't have here is muzzle erosion gauge. Or thread concentricity gauge, but that's okay. Let's check gas port diameter. Now, Colt technical data package for 16-inch barrel states that port size should be 63 thousandths of an inch. Let's pull the 63 thousandths gauge. And take a look at it. Tell you what, it is absolutely swimming in there. Let's go up to 70. 70 thousandths. you still have some play in there. Let's go up to 80. I'm going to go 10 thousandths at a time. I'm not doing every single gauge one at a time. I already know where it's at. Let's go. Let's look at 80. That's a good fit, but I'll bet it'll take a couple more. Let's do 81. Running out of tolerance here. Let's do 82. It does not take the 82 thousandths. So we have an 81 thousandths port diameter. For the Colt Technical Data Package, that's what a 10.5 inch barrel should have. So we have what considered to be an over-gassed barrel. Again, not really a huge, not a bad thing necessarily. It just gives us an idea of what we can expect from test firing. A lot of people will say, if your gun doesn't cycle, open up the gas port, and that may or not help you. If you open up the gas port and you have too much pressure, what you can see are signs of high pressure on the case. You'll see it on the rim, on the extractor, around the ejector, and in the firing pin primer detent. Again, a lot of AR manufacturers give oversized gas ports. So let's dimple underneath our existing gas port. We have the SLR fixture. I think this is SLR. We have our Aero gas block. Now the spacing on this guy, the screw spacing is 485 thousandths. I can tell you there isn't a selection for 485 thousandths spacing on this fixture. That doesn't matter because we're only going to use one screw. One screw is enough if it's Loctited in, not Loctite, rock set in with a knurled screw. If we have problems and we have to change out the gas block in the future, or a new owner wants a new gas block, it has space for another dimple, or it can be pinned in place. So let's affix our little jig here. Tighten down our set screw. Now you can get away with this throwing your barrel into a vise and doing with this with a hand drill. We're going to use a mill. We're going to indicate with a coaxial indicator, and we're going to get exactly centered underneath that gas block hole. We'll put this little fixture in parallels with the flats up against the vise, and well, I'll just fucking show you right now. Let's take a look at the mill. We're going to use a 5/32 ball end mill carbide cutter. And I think our baby's got to go outside, so I'm going to pause you guys right here and let the cat out. Okay, cat's taken care of. Let's get this over with. Okay, that's our coaxial indicator. We're going to set up this barrel on our parallels against the vice jaws. Tighten it down. And we're going to put that little probe roughly inside of that hole. And dial out the run out. Let's see if you guys can even see that. Okay, so there we are, spinning down a hole. Let's get you guys a view of that indicator. Why did it stop? Because the probe fell out. Amazing. Okay, so our short probe kind of fell out of there, but that's okay. We'll use the longer probe. Now each line represents 1/10,000th of an inch. So this is what I like to call really, 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 really close to being directly over our hole. Let's switch out to the cutting tool, and then we'll cut this thing. Okay, I bet that cutting tool is going to go straight into that hole. Let's see how she goes. Perfect clearance. So what we're going to do now is raise that table up a little more. I'm going to lower my cutting tool until it contacts the barrel. It stops. I'm going to lock the quill. Now I'm going to raise my stop here. I'm going to raise the stop on my mill. Unlock my quill. Raise it up. Now I'm going to take the table and raise it up 50 thousandths. That way, when I come back, turn it on and lower my drill, it will absolutely stop at 50 thousandths. Get some speed on this thing. A little cutting oil. Let's get it. That's it. Let's take our barrel out of there. Clean off the chips with some kerosene. take our fixture off of there and we'll check alignment. Turn you guys around here. Make sure I don't have any metal splinters in my hand. Is that the most beautiful port dimple you've ever seen? It's out of focus, how can you tell? Looks great to me. It doesn't look too deep. We don't have a burr around the outside. If you want to have an idea of what would be too thick, if you can see a visible wall, as in you're starting to really bore a hole instead of just milling in that radius, or a lot of people use just like a spade bit, 60 whatever degree spade bit. As long as you use carbide and don't go deep into it enough where you're creating a speed bump in your rifling, and if you go too deep you can do that, you'll be fine. So look for, if you've gone so far deep that you actually are starting to bore a hole in there, you'll see some wall start to show around your hole. 50 thousandths should be fine. So let's slide on our gas block and check alignment with the bore scope. Just go barely finger tight. Alright, I'm going to turn you guys off for a second and try and find my bore scope. Okay guys, here's our bore scope. There I am. Let's make this thing face forward, and hopefully you can see how much alignment we've got here. This is literally the first time I'm using this thing. Okay, so there's our gas port right there. Let's sneak up a little closer to it. Change the view. Oh, there we go. There's the hole. There's our port. Boy, come on. Can you even tell what's going on here? let's get a little piece of weed eater line. Let's see if we can pick that up to our gas port. That's okay. So I'm gonna call that well aligned. I'm not even sure if you guys can see that very well, but we want to see a circle inside of a circle. That's basically what we're looking for. Okay, I'm gonna get this cleared off, and then we'll put our gas tube, attach our gas tube, and torque our barrel down into our receiver. Oh no, we're gonna polish these feed ramps first, and then bed the barrel. Okay, let's get all this shit cleaned up, and then we'll set you guys up for polishing feed ramps. Okay, that should give you guys a pretty good view of these feed ramps as I polish them. Before I get started, I'm going to explain how I was taught to do this in School of the American Rifle from Chad Albrecht. Now, Chad has a kit that he sells that is the same rotary tips and polishing compounds that he uses. I do not have that. What I'm going to use is an extra fine Kratex tip. There it is. And felt wheels with a matchless polishing compound. And that is the compound right there. Now, what I'm going to be doing is polishing each radius, and then I'm going to be rounding over some edges and corners. Chad refers to these as fangs and edges. So this little corner right here, this little corner right there, that little corner right there, that little corner right there, and all of these lug edges and this center line right here. We want to be very careful not to blow out any of these dimensions or any of these defining lines that we just went over. We just want to bring up the polish area, the level of polish on that area inside the radius and at the corners and edges. I've got a cleaning patch stuffed in there just to keep shit out of the bore, make cleanup a little easier. Let's go ahead and do it. This is the first one I've ever done. let's take a little clean out and see what we got. There's quite a bit of mess inside there, but that's okay. That'll be easy to clean out. Let's see how it looks on your guys' end. Let's get a brush in there and clean the rest of that out. Okay, just a little more. I'll try to hit those corners and edges. I think that's a pretty good job with the Cratex so far. We're just going to get in there and break those corners and edges a little bit. A little more cleanup. And we'll move on to that felt bob. So we've got kind of just a cylinder shaped one. We'll use that at first just to go into the radius cuts. And we've got another one that's slightly pointed. That'll make it easier to get into the tips and edges of those fangs. Let's take a second and clean up some of that shit out of there again. who's back. It's the baby. Yeah, he does that to himself, you guys, on his little ear right there. He just scratches that open, and we try to take care of it the best we can. He's so good. You wanna give me a little kissy? He's so good. Okay, let's see if you guys can see that. And that's just the extra fine Cratex and a matchless polishing compound. I think it can be better, so we're going to keep going with the polishing compound. And we'll put that felt tip Okay, I think I'm quite happy with that. I don't know if you guys can really tell, but that's a serious mirror finish in there. I mean, with 2 tips, I mean, I think that's pretty good for just using 2 tips. I mean, I hope you guys can see how high that finish is. The only part I'm not too proud of is our wheel rolled over and hit this part a little bit. No big deal. It's something you get the hang of the more you do it. Okay, I think I've got just about all of that crud out of there. Let's take a look at these things. Still a little green in there. You guys can see even if that's out of focus. Well, I think that is the best view I'm gonna get for you guys. And I'm trying to see if I can catch my fingernail on the edge of those fangs that we rounded over, and I'm not really feeling it. So I'm thinking that looks pretty good, you guys. What I think I'll do is go over it one more time with just a felt wheel without any polishing compound on it, just to brighten it up a little bit. difficult for you guys to really see that. But that's what we do. Well, that's where I'm going to leave them, you guys. I'm pretty proud of it. For my first time doing it. I don't think that's too bad. We got a good reflection in there. And our corners and edges are rounded over. So we'll give this whole barrel a good clean through, get all that shit out of there, and then we'll bed it, torque everything in place, and test fire it. Stick around, you guys. Okay, everyone, those are our polished feed ramps. Let's take a look at how the receiver, how that barrel looks in the receiver with the ramps. Not bad. We do not have overhang of our barrel in our receiver. That looks great. What we're going to do now is lap that receiver face, and then we'll torque everything together. I'll put you guys over here. So this is our lapping tool from Brownells. This is the pilot area that fits into our receiver. You want to make sure this area is well lubricated, as well as the inside of your upper. And it is going to fit in there just like so. Now this face here is what bears against our receiver face. That's where we will apply the lapping compound, and this little dumbbell handle area is relieved to prevent our abrasive compound from getting into the pilot area and marking up the inside of the receiver. It goes forward just like that. We'll hold it in a vise block. This end over here will attach to a hand drill. Spin it for about 10 to 15 seconds. We're looking for 80% at minimum of this surface to be newly lapped. A lot of people are asking Chad, how do you, Chad from School of the American Rifle, are asking, how do you detect whether your receiver needs to be lapped or not? I'm not going to answer for Chad, but I'll give you my personal opinion based on what he's said in videos. It really doesn't hurt in any way to go ahead and lap your receiver. When these things are made, there's no telling what kind of variance in this material could have caused it to warp. So it's, in my opinion, it's worth it to just go ahead and lap basically any receiver that you're willing to put the work into. You can do this on a lathe, or you can do it with a hand tool and a hand drill. We're going to do the latter because I don't have the fixture for holding it in the lathe. Let's read the instructions. Brownell's receiver lapping tool. How to use. Use this tool to square the face of AR15 style upper receivers. Strip receiver incompletely, clean and inspect, remove burrs, pay close attention to the area of the upper receiver where the bolt carrier travels. Clean lapping tool and lubricate the pilot sections and insert into the front of the receiver. Check to make sure the tool rotates freely in the upper. Apply lapping compound, 180 grit is recommended, to the face of the lapping section of the tool. I'm going to use 240 just because it's a little finer finish. It'll take off a little less at a time, and this is my first time doing this, so I want to be as careful as I can. Attach an electric hand drill to the tool's shank, 3/8 shank. Apply firm forward pressure and use moderately high drill speed. After 10 to 15 seconds of lapping, remove the tool and inspect receiver face. You should see that a portion of the face has been affected and anodizing has been removed. Clean the tool and the upper and repeat lapping procedure until a minimum of 80% of the receiver face has been trued. Reassemble firearm according to the manufacturer's instructions. Check for proper functioning using action-proven dummies. If these tests prove satisfactory, test fire with live ammunition. Be safe, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. I'll put this thing over in the lathe. I'm talking about the lathe. Put it in the vise, that's what we're going to do. Okay, there's our receiver in the block with the lapping tool. We can, I don't know if you guys can even detect that I'm spinning that or that I'm just moving my hand, but it is spinning freely. You don't want to tighten your vice down too hard if this thing does, pinches this thing and prevents it from moving. So I'm going to pull it out just a little bit. And then pull it out. Okay, so now we'll apply some of the silicon carbide polishing compound, abrasive compound from Brownell's. It's 240 grit. I'm just going to take a little popsicle stick here and apply it to our lapping surface. try to keep as much excess off of there as we can. We just want enough to cover the surface. Okay, you guys got a good view of that. Let's back it out a little. Okay, I think that's decent. Here we go. That's about 10 seconds. Back it out slightly. And now we'll clean this off, check it, and see where we're at. You can see we kept trying our best to keep that abrasive compound off the pilot area. I'm going to go ahead and take it completely out of here. Okay. Most of our cutting. Turn the light off, maybe you guys can see less reflection. That's better. Okay. You guys can see how much was removed just from some 10 seconds. The majority of it came off from up here. We want that we want to see that silvering or whitening from the aluminum across the circumference of that receiver face. Let's block it up and go for another 10 seconds. Inside of the receiver looks good. I don't see any lapping marks in there. Put a little more lube on there. A little more lube on the pilot area. Okay, tightening down my vise. I can see that this thing spins freely in there still. I'm going to apply just a little bit more compound into the lapping surface. Press it forward. Set up our drill. Are you guys lined up? Yep, we're lined up. I'm really just holding this thing as steady as I can without putting too much forward pressure on it. I'm going to kind of let the weight of the tools do the work as far as pressure, forward pressure goes. I'm trying not to bias that forward pressure so we're not lapping this thing out of true. Here we go. Okay, let's check. Now, do you have to take this in and out every single cycle of turning this thing around? Probably not. I'm just making sure there's no compound inside our receiver. Or on the pilot section of the lug of the tool. Let's take a look at that face and see if we can. Okay, let's cut the light again. Pretty good contact here. You can see the 6 o'clock area around here to here. Still has a little bit of finish. It looks almost gray. I'll do one more cycle at 10 seconds and then we'll check it again. Are we concerned about taking too much off of here and our barrel being set back over the feed ramps in the receiver? It's a concern, but we're not taking off enough to. We've got plenty of correct geometry on our feed ramps right now, so if this thing goes back a little bit, even just slightly, it's okay. It's not going to affect headspace. It's not going to really affect anything. Headspace is controlled by the receiver extension, barrel extension. Alright, so let's get that pilot set up again. A little more lube in the receiver, some more on the tool. In she goes. Tightening our vise, it still spins freely. Let's get a little more new compound on there. You guys still in frame? Okay, cool. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's push it forward, get the drill on there. Do one more cycle of 10 seconds-ish. Here we go. How long are these fixtures going to last before you start grinding a groove into the lapping face? That depends on how often or how much you use it on a particular receiver. You can get a few receivers out of this thing, 5 to maybe 10, depending on how aggressive you are with it. And if it does start to show signs of wear on that lapping surface, you can true this in a lathe, no problem. There's plenty of material here to cut this bad boy back and retrue the surface and just keep using it. Let's take a look-see. Can you see that small black line right there? We're going to do one more cycle of 10 seconds and we'll see if we can get that out. Oh, where'd my frame go? Here we are. One more. Okay, in goes our receiver, our pilot tool. Apply a little more compound on there. Okay, one more 10-second cycle, and then we'll check again. I'm sure this will be the end of it. Cut the light. I like that, guys. I'm a fan. Now, our next step. This is pretty much it for all of our barrel work and preparation before we torque on. You're probably thinking or wondering, are we going to, what do we do about this exposed area? This softer aluminum, we've removed the anodizing. Are we concerned about it at all? This isn't a striking surface. All we're doing is bearing the receiver shoulder against that so that it's a square surface. We are concerned about the galvanic corrosion of dissimilar metals between an aluminum and steel surface. We typically use the arrow shell for that. Whenever you lap a receiver like this, I was told that you should always bed the barrel and receiver. So the bedding compound, our poor baby over here, oh, his ear hurts. That's okay. We've got some, it's basically like first aid spray. If you've ever played Resident Evil, it's basically like a topical first aid spray that comes out of a little pump container that we spray on that wound of his, and that's supposed to make it a little better, but God only knows if it's helping him. So, what we're going to do is we'll bed the barrel with 620 Loctite and make sure that our shoulder of our barrel, or barrel extension, has some of that on there as well. That's going to play the same role as the grease in preventing galvanic corrosion in there. Okay, I'm going to tend to baby right now, and then we will torque this barrel on. I'll be right back, you guys. Stick around. Okay, everyone. Baby is back in his bed. Let's get this thing rolling. Now, we have trued our receiver face, polished our feed ramps, dimpled our barrel. We are going to bed this barrel and torque it on. Let's wipe down everything with a little alcohol just to make sure we got no oil or grease on that. And we'll wipe inside the receiver. Move the threads down a little bit. We put grease on the threads, 620 Loctite on our barrel, as well as grease in our barrel nut. So we'll assemble, we will put this together hand tight and then torque it down. And I'll set you guys up so that you can see that we're not rotating our barrel while we torque. This is the 620 Loctite, 640 we'll be using to bed the barrel. Just gonna shake it up for a little bit. And we're going to apply that Loctite on our barrel extension. Don't worry, we're going to wipe off the excess. Make sure we keep that out of the feed ramp. Make sure we're not putting abrasive compound instead of grease on here. Easy mistake if you're not paying attention. Can you see this? Okay. Our Loctite's dripping off a little bit, that's okay. We want this on our receiver threads as well. Okay, let's rotate you guys this way. We've got grease on our receiver threads. In goes our barrel. It's going to spooge out all of that excess Loctite. We will go hand tight. Let's see, what's the best way to do this? What I want to show you guys is how to almost drop your upper on the floor. What I want to show you guys is we're going to watch and see using our gas port gauge pen to see if this barrel spins when we torque this thing down. I'm not going to use my Midwest rod. I'm going to use the Wheeler. I want to keep that Midwest unused so I can use it as a gauge. Put a little lube on this guy. There she goes. Now, if you do not use a combination of a rod and a block like this, you can risk rotating that pin. And when you rotate that you can risk spinning the barrel, and when you spin the barrel, that indexing pin is going to bear against the receiver. You can possibly bend or break that pin. You can possibly break the receiver. With the block and the rod, that is minimalized greatly. So let's see if we can set you up somehow over here. And we're gonna see if that rotates as I torque. Maybe let's go top down. Yeah, we'll do that. I mean, you'll see if you'll be able to detect if that rotates. And we're not directly over it, that's why it looks like it's out of clock right now. We've got our torque wrench. We've got our crow's foot, what do you call this? The wrench for that receiver barrel, for that barrel nut. Turning on our torque wrench. We're set at 60 foot-pounds. Oh, there we go, 60 foot-pounds. Let's see if that thing goes. No surprise, it stays right in place. Let's wipe off any excess grease. Does that look out of clock to you guys? I don't think so. Okay, we'll let that cure and then we'll go over the receiver, the lower receiver a little bit, do some checks on that, and then we'll test fire. And I'll show you guys what we can expect from this oversized gas port that we have. We have a couple different bolt carriers, one that gauges in all green and one that gauges all yellow. We'll test fire with both and see how it cycles and how much pressure it puts on that case head. We'll look at the rim of the case, we'll look at the primer indentation, and we'll look for ejector scratching on the head of the case. Stick around, you guys.